Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I actually invested in this microphone. I thought I'd try and improve my channel a little bit, but it's so tiny. I'm going to try and it does actually clip on, but the sound isn't quite as good when you have it down on your top as it is when you hold it, but it probably looks a little bit silly because it's so tiny. But I think it will make the sound quality a lot better. So I wanted to do a video today about desires and how desires actually come from lack, and they highlight where we are out of flow and out of alignment. I've been thinking a lot lately about desires and about surrender and about manifesting and the little trio of things and how they go together with regards to spirituality. And I kind of came to a conclusion about desires, that desires actually highlight lack. And when you think about it, when you have a desire, it's because you want something that you don't have, right? So it's a lack. If you already have it, then you don't desire it because you have it. So if you're desiring something, it's because you're lacking it. And that was a real aha moment for me when I realized that, because a desire is literally showing you and pointing to you where you are blocked and you're out of alignment with flow state. So if you literally had, if you were completely unblocked and you were in flow state and everything was just flowing in, then you wouldn't really have any desires. And quite often desires can be limiting because we desire things without any awareness of what's better. You know, we desire a specific person thinking they're the best person we've met so far. But how do we know that there's not a much better person that we couldn't even conceptualize right now? And it's the same with anything like houses, jobs, you know, that job that you think you really, really want, you know, haven't you had that experience then when something else has come along that you wouldn't even ever have thought would be so great, and it just turns out to be the most amazing thing? Like when we're in flow state and we're just really in that kind of bliss state and everything's just coming, you know, when I call it like tuned in and turned on with your magnetic energy. When you're in that state and things are just coming to you, you don't really sit there and have desires. You don't desire for anything because everything you kind of need and desire is just flowing into you. So you don't have time to sit there and think, oh my God, I want this and I want that, because you're living in the now, you're living in the moment and things are flowing. The reason I don't think desires are bad though is because desires allow us to see where we still have resistance and blocks from being in flow state. So I still think flow state is the place that we want to exist. The flow state where really our only affirmation and manifestation should be everything is always working out for me in the best possible way. We wouldn't really need anything else. We wouldn't need to say anything else because we'd just be magnetizing in things all the time that were just surprising us and amazing us. And we wouldn't really have that time to sit back and think, oh my God, I really want this. And to have desires, because we'd be fulfilled. You know, desires are pinpointing, in my opinion, where we're out of alignment, and they're actually helping us to get more into alignment and flow state. Because when we follow a desire, during the process of following it, we kind of transcend it and we collapse it, which is very often when you get something that you're manifesting, you no longer desire it, right? Because you have it. And what generally happens is then it just becomes a part of everyday life, or you don't want it anymore. And when it becomes a part of everyday life, you generally just have a nice warm feeling of gratitude. So I think I mentioned in another video, I got a nice new car recently, and oh my gosh, when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, I want this car. I love this car. It's like the nicest car I've ever had. And I thought, it's not that amazing, but to me, it's like the nicest car I've ever had. And, you know, it's kind of like, wow. And now, you know, about, a month later, I'm just, oh, this is a nice car. You know, I do still feel really grateful every time I get in it, but I don't feel excited. It's not a desire. I'm not, you know, I'm just grateful, and it's a part of, it's just my car. It's normal. When I first saw it, it was a little bit beyond my reach because I've never had a car that nice before. But now it's just normal. It's just become my new state. I don't desire it anymore. It's just normal. It's just a part of my life. And this is the same with relationships. You know, once you've been in a relationship for a year with that person that you really, really were desiring, you don't desire it in the same way anymore. You're just grateful. You have gratitude for having it. Or sometimes you don't want it anymore because actually once you've collapsed the resistance and the lack and all those blocks, you actually realize, actually, I'm not really that interested anymore. So normally one of two things happen. So I think desires are great. So, you know, two things can exist at once. I think that in the ultimate state of being, we have no desires at all. We just exist in flow state and we just magnetize the best things for us at all times. And life is super exciting. But I also think there's nothing wrong with having desires and chasing those desires, because what they're helping us to do is to fold down and transcend and integrate blocks, limited ways of thinking, negative ways of thinking. You know, for example, so there's something that I have never had any blocks with, and that is freebies, right? So I have always been exceptional at attracting free experiences, free things. You know, I've been on all kinds of 5-star holidays, you know, because my friend's a journalist, or when I was doing photography, I'd get invited on these shoots. You know, it's normal for me to be invited on posh dinners, and just generally, I've always free drink, champagne, like I've always spa visits. I've always just attracted a lot of freebies. And I've never had any block. I've always been in flow state when it comes to freebies. And I've never really had desires when it comes to freebies. I've never specifically ever sat there and thought, I want this freebie. I've never needed to, because I kind of like, you know, when it was consistent, it doesn't happen quite so much anymore because I like to stay home so much. But when it was way more consistent, I didn't have really time, or I didn't have the gap or the lack to be thinking, oh, I want that specific thing free. I just was excited by the surprises, and it was like I was in a flow state, and it was very natural for me to be in a flow state. I didn't have limiting beliefs or thoughts, and I didn't analyze things, you know, I just was in the flow of freebies coming. And when they did, I was very grateful. And I was like, wow, you know, this is amazing. I'm so happy. And I enjoyed them, and I lived in the moment, and I never had any limits in that department. Yet, you know, when it comes to specific people, then it's like, oh, am I worthy? Do they like me? Do they not like me? Oh, are they going to text me? Oh my God, they've not texted me. Are they going to ask me out? Oh my God, should I ask? You know, I didn't have those thoughts with freebies. I just literally lived in the now, and sort of, I guess, on a subtle level, expected without expecting. It was just like, you know, if I desire a glass of water, I don't have to think about it. I just go to the fridge and I get the water, you know. I don't sit there and think, does the water find me worthy? Is the water good enough? You know, what desires are doing, especially these tricky desires around mostly specific people and money, right? They're generally where people get really stuck. There are other things, but they're generally the stuck areas, or friendships. And it's generally because of all the limiting beliefs and the stories and the lack and, you know, the stuff that those desires dredge up. And that's part of the process, because we're here to transcend them. And then I think once we transcend those energies, won't really have desires anymore. We won't have time for desires. There won't be the space to have desires, because we'll just be not really needing anything, because, you know, life is flow, everything feels great, and we're getting like unexpected things all the time. And we will spend much more of our time in gratitude than we will in desire. So yes, I think desires are a lower timeline, but I also think they're very, very important to get us to a higher timeline, because when we integrate those desires and we work towards having them, then we transcend them, right? So that we don't have them as desires anymore. So that's my video for today. And I hope the sound quality's a little bit better with my diddy little microphone. All right, bye-bye.